Westeros!
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I am Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
I'm Kyle.
We're the fucking Morning Throners. Alright, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Throners podcast. This is the fourth installation of our Game of Thrones, and we are tackling Daenerys here. And this is my girl, love her, can't get enough of her.
She's
Need
13.
to see. That's okay.
She's got small tits.
That's
She's
okay.
13.
She had her first blood.
Yeah.
Khal Drogo is almost 28, so we match up. And I look pretty much like Khal Drogo, too. Same stature. Not true.
Yeah, exactly.
Not true, listeners. But here we go. Let's get rolling. Kyle, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
For the listeners,
Yeah,
Kyle's
Kyle.
been here for the past 3 podcasts, but we actually recorded Prologue, Bran, and Catelyn 1 before we did the Night of Seven Kingdoms, so Kyle's been gone for about a month. But we're glad to have him back. Back into Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Kyle.
Eat.
We're back.
All right,
We
well,
are back.
Let's get into it. Let's see. Kyle read this last night, so hopefully he's got all of it fresh in mind. Do you know where Dany is in this chapter?
What do you mean? She's in some town. Pentos.
Yeah, so Dany fled across the sea with her brother, Viserys, is how you say his name. They were both the children of the king who got overthrown by
The usurper.
Robert in the rebellion. Yeah.
No, just the usurper. I don't know who this guy is yet.
Do you even know what that word means? I didn't know if that was a Game of Thrones word
No,
or if
to
that's like an
usurp
actual word.
Is to take
yeah,
over.
usurp is a
Holy shit,
Nelson.
Nelson. Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
I
know.
knew
Read
if
a
that
I
they
really-
use
dictionary
it-
for
Go
once,
to
dude.
go to college.
I don't really know if I knew that either.
Yeah.
Without.
I knew it was a
So-
verb. They use usurp in this book, but like I kind of got it from context clues, I think, when I read it. the
Not
first time.
everything stems from Game of Thrones. I know you think this is like the origin of human life.
Yeah, I can't believe horses came from Game of Thrones.
He was earlier. He was like, I can't believe Tolkien ripped so much off of Game of Thrones.
Dungeons and Dragons ripped all that shit off.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So they're across the sea, staying with this super rich dude, super rich, super fat.
I think it's
Dude.
also pretty curious that Pentos is very close to King's Landing, isn't it? Isn't it?
It's like basically straight across the sea. Yeah,
And it's like a stone's throw. Like, you could get there not... I feel like it wouldn't take too long to get to and from. You know, obviously
Yeah,
you're going
for
by
sure.
boat, but if the wind's with you, you know what I mean? You're rolling.
yeah. I'm sure they mention it later, but yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not far. They call it the narrow sea, so it's not a wide sea.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
true.
kind of straight across.
It definitely opens up. I mean, maybe a little bit as you go
I'm not
north,
seeing
but
Pentos on this map. I see
It's
King's
Where? In the
Landing.
beginning of the book,
Yeah.
go like right east.
it might not show. Does it show the other continent?
I don't think
No,
so.
there's another continent. No, it doesn't. The north
No,
and the south
it's
is
just
all
those-
this is.
That's pretty stupid by George.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, but yeah, basically, you just go from where King's Landing is, probably a little bit north of there, and just go
Straight east.
straight east. It's not far. It's called the Narrow Sea.
What's
you
it
get to
called?
Pentos. The Narrow Sea is what separates them.
I'm just kidding.
'Cause
You
I've
said
said
it.
it so
You
many
said
times.
yes.
So then you got Westeros, and on the left, on the west, and then Essos on the right. And there's actually Sothoros on the south too, but that's not even really in the books at all. Yes, they don't really ever mention it. It's in like the lore books, but there's Sothoros to the the south.
Only real nerds know about that shit.
Exactly. Well, you guys will all be there by the end of the podcast. series.
Is there North Oros?
No, there's not. There's just Lands of Always Winter, which is north of Westeros.
All right, let's get going.
Kyle, give us the 10-second paragraph synopsis of the entire chapter.
Her brother, I'm gonna say it wrong, Viserys.
Viserys.
Is selling her off to Khal Drogo, in order to get an army to take back his land.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's pretty much it.
And this Illyrio dude is pretty shady.
What's kind of weird about Illyrio is they
Illyrio.
say, yeah, Magister Illyrio. They when she's like first describing him, she says that like he's a trader in like gemstones and spices and less savory things. And then also people say that there's nothing like he would sell out his mother for the right price.
Yeah,
he's
so you're probably in the slave trade and shit like that.
So why is that weird? I mean, I feel like that all fits together pretty accurately.
okay, but
Less
then at the
savory
end of
things. Go ahead.
at the end of the chapter, they're talking about how the usurper is like trying to kill them, and when they're going into the manse, Viserys is like, why is this eunuch questioning me at the door, like the guard? And he's like, well, Khal Drogo has like a lot of important people here. He wants to protect them. You most of all. You're the king of Westeros. And Viserys says like, yeah, like the usurper has like so much money out on my head. It's like the king of Westeros could probably pay whatever price Magister Illyrio would want to get people up if he's the kind of guy who would sell his mother for the right price.
Yeah, and he's even was like, what did he do? He was like laughing about it or something. Like you could tell he was being a dickhead.
Exactly. It's just kind of weird. Why is Illyrio
the
helping?
hint of a smile playing around his full lips, but her brother did not notice. He isn't helping him. Is what I'm seeing here. This is all a setup for his own gain. Is what I'm seeing.
It's a lot of he said, she said though about what she's hearing a lot through like servants and just what other people say. So,
but
I don't trust this fat fuck. Get out of here with that.
But also
it's kind of hard to trust anybody, especially because it's from a person's. We're just getting Dany's point of view. If we got Viserys' point of view, it'd be like, oh my god, this dude like loves me. He just wants to be my servant because I'm so fucking cool. Where Dany, I feel like right now she's just
has more of an objective,
and she's a scared little like I don't want to call her little, but she's kind of a scared young girl and like doesn't really know anything. She hasn't been told she's anybody, you know what I mean? But this dude's sister, so
well, and like Ka said, like he's for his own gain.
It's obviously he's out for his own gain.
But like
this whole thing,
and it makes sense. I guess it does make sense that if he backs up Viserys, and Viserys actually does become king, and he's the dude who like orchestrated
got him there, yeah,
sitting pretty, exactly,
right. And
so I guess it makes sense either way. He's either he could get the quick cash grab now and just get a ton of money for turning these guys in, or he's playing the long game, taking a little bit of a risk, but he'd be top dog. If
he's trying to get some more food.
Through. And then another thing, I mean, he's pretty rich. Does he really need? Does he need the money to sell the Targaryens, or could he help the Targaryens? And if they do win, it's not like the usurper is coming over across the narrow sea. It's not like he's trying to expand to Essos.
Well, he's not trying to expand, but he's trying to kill them. Like
he's got knives at their back.
People have been after him.
If
but
he's not trying to conquer Essos.
Right.
I don't see how that matters.
Because it's not like Illyrio's really. Because I'm saying Illyrio's not really worried.
Oh, gotcha.
About it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If the Targaryens win, the Targaryens won, and now he's the man. If they end up getting killed, wipe your hands clean and move on. Like you're still doing what you got to do in your town.
Yeah. So the other thing you guys mentioned while we were talking about Illyrio, he has slaves. The slaves are the ones that come in and like wash Dany here in a second, and he says he trades in less savory things, which I guess could potentially be slaves. We're not sure.
Horse.
But potentially whores. Probably.
And whores.
I think this kind of have a lot of. If you're having a Venn diagram, the slaves and whores is kind of the part in the middle is the females, right? Like probably most female slaves are just like used for sex a lot. But
they're definitely banging.
That's what you do with
the
them.
master.
That's what I do.
We also find out that Pentos, this place, is one of the 9 free cities. They say that early, and then later they say that the free cities means the cities with no slaves. But Illyrio's got slaves and potentially trades slaves.
Well,
yeah.
Dany even said that they're servants. They're not slaves, but they might as well be.
And it says right here, less savory things, meaning like illegal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like I don't.
But
under the table, slavery.
Right, I'm just pointing those things out so they don't go
indentured servants.
They don't go missed. So then we get the story of how they got there.
Hold on. We got to start with the weirdest part of the whole thing, which is
okay. I think this is before that. Oh no, maybe not.
It starts with her like touching her dress, where Viserys goes all weirdo brother. Feeling her nipples.
Don't wake the dragon.
Not like feeling.
Pinching her nipple real hard.
No, he did.
Yeah, like,
he
nice
felt
little
him first.
Purple nipple.
It was before
Jeff
that.
made it sound sexual. It seemed more.
It started
aggressive.
pretty sexual.
No.
Oh really?
It started sexual and then it got aggressive.
And it just like ends with a little purple nipple.
We also hear though in the middle of it somewhere that Dany, when she's talking about Khal Drogo, had always assumed she was just going to marry Viserys because that's what the Targaryens do. They just married brother to sister to keep bloodlines pure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
she kind of likes him.
I bet you she wasn't even freaked out by the sexual part, but just kind of got pissed off.
I
when
was.
He starts
I
getting
was.
the nipple.
I was a little.
It's because she's 13.
Yeah, and his sister. That's actually. It's a pretty big part of it.
Boys will be boys. Siblings will be siblings.
I just wanted to point out Viserys is kind of a weirdo. So
yeah, for sure.
He's a real weirdo. Yeah.
All right, so Kyle, do you remember the backstory? How'd they get where they are, basically?
Man, like, I mean, what do you want me to go through all of it? Like,
I'll help out.
I'll help too.
Well, like their town got raided, and then somebody stole them. I'm gonna skip a whole bunch of shit. Is my problem. And then somebody stole them out of the nursery, and get his name now, but
Sir William Derry.
Yeah. And then they took him to some place with a red door. I forget all the names of these places pretty quickly.
Yeah, so they go to Bravos, which is another one of the free cities.
Okay.
And that's where she lives in this big house with the red door, and that guy who stole her dies.
Yeah. And he was pretty much bedridden the whole time, it sounds like.
Yeah, he got like sickly, and she just like remembers him as being really stinky at the end.
Just dying.
Yeah, he smelled like
she
death.
had a lemon tree, right?
Yeah, there was a lemon tree.
Lemon tree with a red door.
And then they were there, and then he died, and then everybody came and pretty much stole all his stuff, and they kicked him out of his house.
Yep.
And then now they're here.
Yeah, so they said that after that happened, basically for a little while, rich people were like happy to house them and like feed them, but then somehow that stopped.
And people stopped caring about the Targaryens more and more.
Year after year. Yeah, the usurper's ruling, and
you still have no power. You're just like
nobody's.
You're a little fucking boy, and
exactly.
Yeah.
Viserys is 8 and
He's 21 now,
and she's 13. So even like at the most recent time, you're trusting that housing a 21-year-old and 13-year-old potential future rebels, right? It's been 13 years, so at this point, if they try to conquer, it's like more rebellion than it is taking back their seat. It's like borderline. So obviously the risks just outweigh the rewards of your housing and feeding a rebel versus you're kind of doing what Illyrio is banking on, is hoping to get something out of it. But yeah, when they leave, he's 8. She is actually born like as they're fleeing and gets like born during a horrible storm on Dragonstone, which is the Targaryen ancestral house, like castle. The kingdom is ruled from King's Landing, which is close to Dragonstone, but Dragonstone's an island where the Targaryens live. They flee there when King's Landing is attacked. She's born there, and then that's where they get stolen from. And they say when she gets stolen, they were actually afraid that the rest of the guards were like plotting to sell them to the usurper. And William Derry and 4 other dudes were the only ones who stole her away. That's why they had to steal her, because she had already escaped, and then they stole her from her own men, being afraid that they would sell her back.
Then they went to like Mir, Tyrosh, Cohort, and Volantis.
Yeah, just all the other cities. And like I think Volantis isn't a free city, but I think all the other ones you said are others of the 9 free cities that they were talking about.
And selling all their shit to live. Even the crown.
Their mother's crown?
Yeah, mom's crown, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was like one of the last things they sold away for some money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually they start calling Viserys the Beggar King, because he's got nothing and just basically going everywhere asking for handouts.
It's kind of weird that Dany hears all this chatter.
Well, this is all, you have to assume that everything we've talked about up to this point, except for stuff about Illyrio, is 100% from Viserys. Right? She was a baby when she was born. She remembers a little bit of William Derry, but she had like, how long was Derry alive?
She said she doesn't
5
remember
years?
like Dragonstone or whatever it is.
Doesn't remember Dragonstone at all, and all she really remembers about Bravos is where they first fled to was
the house
with the red door and the lemon tree, exactly. And
but what she's heard about Illyrio hasn't. Are you saying before Illyrio?
I'm saying everything that we've discussed, except for the stuff about Illyrio.
Basically
her only sources
about her past is
right.
Yeah,
no, I agree with you there. But now she's hearing a lot of stuff. The stuff she's hearing about Illyrio, like where is she? She's not going out on town like hearing stuff. Is his servants talking? I guess maybe that we meet a young 16-year-old serving wench soon. Maybe she just like. I think she says she talks a fuck ton, so maybe she's...
and how Also, we hear a lot of bad stuff about Illyrio, but like you said, if she's only getting her sources from the people who are slaves for Illyrio, they probably don't have the best things.
I don't know.
say.
They're probably pretty reliable in terms of all
They're
his
probably pretty
shortcomings.
truthful,
So, yeah.
but also they don't have the best outlook on him, right? You don't want somebody that's like your slave, the
Right.
one talking you up to everybody.
Yeah, he's not the one that's going to be
Why
defending
not?
you.
I mean, if you're a
calling
good
you-
slave owner, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's
if
actually
you're
a
a
good
good slave
point, and they
owner,
do get a
but-
lot more into this, like as slavery's a thing later. But there's like it's big in like the later book, like is like some slaves have a way better life than like peasants in like especially this time period, and it like
Well, I mean that.
It's a good
Yeah.
thing, right?
especially when you're
No.
not a good thing, but when you have somebody with like
I know.
Magister Illyrio.
That was a joke.
Yeah, but when you have somebody like Magister Illyrio, some of your and they even talk about it, right? So we'll keep going like story wise. This was all stuff Dany was thinking after Viserys leaves her. But the slaves come in, the young one and an old one. They start like giving her a bath. They're like telling her not to get in the water because it's too hot, and she says like water is never too hot for a Targaryen.
I don't think they told her not to get in.
They didn't.
No, they didn't. That's just a show. What a great scene in the show.
Well, it's a great scene in the show because she's not 13 and her boobs are out.
I didn't say that.
Jeff's like, if only there was one difference.
Jeff, your girlfriend
She
doesn't
was
listen to this
13.
anymore. She doesn't read the book. You can say
She's
whatever
you're in
got
the clear,
she's got
Jeff.
1,000 years in one.
yeah, she's got Allie's superpowers telling her what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Shout out.
So while she's getting this bath, that's kind of what I was getting to. The slaves start talking up how like awesome the Cal is. There's 100,000 men in his army, and even his slaves wear golden collars. So that like, kind of like you said, and I think they even said these slaves were gifts from Khal Drogo, right?
I thought she was describing Drogo's slaves there, or was
She
it?
is, but
I don't
but
think-
these.
I don't.
Yeah,
think
I
they
don't
were
think
gifts,
these guys
no.
are slaves
from
from.
Illyrio.
I thought
Or
Yeah,
they
I
these
don't
said
two
think
that.
guys.
so.
Oh, these two ladies.
Yeah, I thought Illyrio says that they're gifts from the
These
cow
two Mises.
No, I think
because they just trade in slaves.
Illyrio said something that he's giving them some guys, or
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I believe Jeff's right. with
Either
that.
way,
They
we're
were
talking
they were a
about-
gift from one of the many Dothraki friends.
okay. So
They might
Khal
have been
Drogo
him.
is the Dothraki,
Yeah,
so it might have been him.
Yeah.
But yeah, these women were slaves in a Dothraki army, and even if it wasn't Khal Drogo's army, they would maybe they're envious of Khal Drogo's slaves who wear golden collars when they were wearing like iron ones or
Well,
whatever.
that would
Right.
make you believe that
Or
this
leather
Illyrio
straps.
dude is a real piece of shit if they say good things about the other slave owners.
Well, I'm saying if they were a gift from a lesser cow,
But they came from a.
and they're talking about like this other cow, like this other army. They're slaves from one army talking about, oh, I wish I was a slave in this other army because blah 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 blah. Now that they're living in a manse with like beds and stuff, it's probably better than the Dothraki barbarian life. either way.
Yeah.
But it just kind of points to the thing like some slaves don't have it too bad.
no. I mean, you think about what kind of slave you could be.
It's
And-
true, man.
No, it's definitely true.
All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Some slaves have it better, but it's not a good.
It's not
time.
good. No, you don't want to be.
Either
a slave.
way,
All
it's not good.
Let's just think about. Let's go into.
This Kyle's laughing
Most
at
of
me,
them
but this,
don't
like,
have a
comes
good
up,
time.
Like a lot of characters think this to themselves later on in the books.
Let's go into the serving wench, the 16-year-old girl.
Okay?
What's her job? Get some
Diddling.
food out, bang Illyrio,
Yeah.
go to sleep, wake up,
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Some
know?
women do that nowadays, right? Gold diggers just marry huge fat rich dudes.
Nelson's looking
Yeah.
for one. This is an ad.
Yes, if anybody's interested, once I come into my fortune, I'll be in the market.
You're not in the market
I
yet.
can't afford it. Can't afford it yet. Can't afford a gold digger yet. All right, but yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Kyle quit laughing at me. I'm not saying slavery's good. I'm just saying some
They had it
slaves
pretty good.
have it better than
They
other
should be
people.
happy for where they were. You know, they just be happy.
All right. Let's stop talking about slaves and talk about just.
We'll
how
bring this
impressive-
up. I don't want to hear Kyle to hear. We'll bring that back up in the second
Yeah.
half.
Okay.
Just a quick conversation about
Yeah.
what we
Well,
just
in the
talked about.
spoiler discussion. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll keep going. The cow basically little discussion. there's like we find out there's like a major city based Dothrak, and they say that that's where Cal's like main palace is, and it's a palace with over 200 rooms. He has an army with over 100,000 people. Slaves wear golden collars. This dude just like the head of the Dothraki. So Kyle, I don't know, maybe you already know from your slight knowledge on like the show or whatever. Do you know like what the Dothraki people are like, or just from what you've read in this chapter?
Nobody can be a Dothraki on an open field, right? And that's something that they say.
Yeah, they mention that, and Viserys mentions that he thinks he could win back all of Westeros with only 10,000 of his men.
Yeah, but then they get crushed in the show at the end. They're like nobodies.
That doesn't exist here.
Yeah, that's even.
Yeah, that's totally different.
Even if that was the same
universe.
thing that happened in the books, that is past. Like that hasn't happened in the books. Maybe that's a win's a winner thing.
Right. I think it's they love horses. I think we can say that much. It's not a real spoiler.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is like what?
Well, I know
can I
that.
say
Yeah,
here
they're on horseback archers, right? Aren't they really good at that shit?
Well, they're just like full horseback warriors.
Yeah, they're kind of like the horse people.
They're like nomads, but they're like
they would take,
you know?
They'd probably take a horse over if they were choosing a horse or, you know, let's say a pile of silver, they probably take the horse, you know what I mean?
Don't they fuck their horses?
Somebody mentioned that, but
I think Viserys says that. Viserys says like they have weird likings or something like that. Like
fucking like goats, that was it. Fucking goats, and Illyrio was like, don't say that in front of the cow.
Well, then at the end, though, he said that he would let all of them fuck Daenerys, including their horses.
Exactly. This is kind of a horrible thing to say to your sister, but
your 13-year-old sister.
Man, I like his morals and standards.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Dany gets all dolled up by these slaves, goes out, sees Viserys and Illyrio again. They hop in Illyrio's palanquin and go to the manse. And this is where, like I said earlier, Viserys says he thinks he only need 100 or 10,000 to take over Westeros. And Illyrio's like, yeah, there's people in Westeros. Like, once you cross the sea, all these other houses will join you, and the peasants cry out for their long-lost king and all this shit. And Viserys is like, yeah, I will kill the usurper Robert Baratheon and Tywin Lannister myself. And Illyrio's like, yeah, I'm sure you will.
I think it's also funny
and Daenerys is just like, yeah, sure.
Dany's just talking shit too. Like, you're holding that sword, you've never even swung it. No one's trained you.
Well, I don't think she said that to him, right?
Anybody. No, she's just thinking it.
She's saying that
talking.
to herself. Yeah.
She's not saying it out loud. Or she would wait the dragon.
Yeah.
Which is what we find out Viserys calls getting mad.
Well, he said that really early on. But yeah.
What a douche.
Yeah.
Such a douche. Stand up guy, man. I like it.
So they get to Drogo's manse, and it's huge. 9 huge black towers, pale ivy, which has to just look awesome. Just huge black towers with white ivy. They say, and they ask like how he got this manse. And do you remember what Illyrio says?
Somebody gave it to him.
Yeah, the people of Pentos just gave it to him so they would stop raiding. And
He's like, we're not afraid of the Dothraki and their 100,000 person army.
It's just a lot easier
we're
to
just,
give him this
we're
cheap
just
gift.
tired of you fucking our goats.
Like, it's just a lot easier if we give them a huge castle instead of let them do their worst. So that's how he gets this huge manse, and he's probably just never there. So it's probably just kind of like they rent out this like huge castle to him every time he kind of shows up. And this is when there's the guards there, and Viserys is like, "Who are you to not let me in?"
They first touch on the eunuchs here.
The eunuchs. Kyle, do you know what eunuch means?
Yeah, castrated. Come on, Nelson. Just because you don't know what a usurper is.
No, it's from. This is a Game of Thrones word.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not. Jesus Christ, Nelson! Not everything's from Game of Thrones.
I knew this one. I was just kidding. The thing is, I'm so good about kidding sometimes you guys can't tell.
You're just so stupid most of the time.
Yeah, it's easy to believe when you're.
So they point out when they get in, Magister Illyrio points out 3 notable people that are near Khal Drogo. Khal Mono, who is one of his blood riders, Archon of Tyrosh, and Ser Jorah Mormont, who's like the first
He's a knight.
he sees in forever.
Why do they only bring up one of the blood riders?
I think it's just those were the 3 people that were standing next to the cow when they walked in.
Okay.
Kyle, Kyle probably doesn't even know what a Blood Rider is because I don't know.
They
if
don't.
explain
They
it.
don't say much. They don't go into it much. But
I know who Jorah is. I think.
Jorah Mormont.
Well, you know who Jorah is?
This is one of the characters who I don't think looks at all like the character from the show.
Is he the one with? Is he the one that was with Bran at the end?
No.
No.
He's 40, balding.
He's described as
That's
I
about
think
it.
buffer,
Just super hairy.
and
He's like
super
buff.
hairy and like dark hair with no hair on the top of his head, and I think maybe a like a dark brown beard.
I get like a bald, tiny baby gorilla look.
Then I don't know who Jorah is. By the way, I know he
Well,
died at that.
On the show, he's different.
That
he doesn't
battle,
look like this in the
but
show.
I didn't.
He's in it, but that's not who it is.
So does Jorah come up here? I don't think so. I think Viserys just says like I'm gonna talk to that guy later.
No, he doesn't
that's
come
all
over.
that happens.
But she's pumped that he's a knight.
And Viserys is pumped too. He's like, I want to talk to that guy. I think he tells Illyria like, I want to
Yeah.
talk to that guy later on.
This is like the first thing since a while that Danny's probably seen of Westeros, right?
Westeros, yeah, for sure.
In a while, yeah.
And we find out why he's here.
Yeah, Kyle, do you remember why he is?
So he
No.
caught poachers
Oh
on his
yeah, and he
land
didn't turn him over to the wall, right?
Yeah, instead
Yeah.
he sold him into slavery and got like exiled, or either exiled or he fled.
I think. Yeah,
Okay.
they were gonna, because we know that
Ned Stark's
Which I don't understand. Who do he sell the slaves to? Like
he
he's
sold
on
them to
the Bear
Tyrosh people,
Island,
I'm
which
pretty
is
Illyria.
fucking. Yeah, but he's on like the other side of fucking.
I'm pretty sure he sold it to Tyroshi people.
Yeah, they said Tyroshi people. They don't explain why. They just say that's where he goes,
Yeah,
or that's where they go.
I wonder why.
Tyroshi slaver. Yeah.
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 So then I have the first quote that from this chapter, just a short one. Khal Drogo was a head taller than the tallest man in the room, yet somehow light on his feet, as graceful as a panther in Illyrio's menagerie. So, do you know what menagerie means? Another Game of Thrones word.
No, it isn't. It's an animal like sanctuary.
It's like a zoo, right?
essentially. Yeah, pretty
It's like a
much.
zoo?
Small zoo. Yeah.
I had to Google this one because I didn't know what it was.
Jesus Christ. Get out of your
That's
house.
a weird
little
word.
bit.
I don't even.
I didn't know what a menagerie
Did
was.
I even say
You've
that
never
right?
been to one?
I was thinking menage a tray.
We go
I
to
was
one
thinking like
in,
haberdashery.
in Union County all the time. Union
What does
County
that even
Sportsman's Club has a
Menagerie?
menagerie behind it. Yeah, they got like pheasants and deer and all sorts
So
of
it's
shit.
like a shitty zoo.
Shitty.
It's more
Yes.
natural than a
Yeah,
zoo.
kind of.
No, I wouldn't say
It's like
cheap.
exotic.
No, it's more natural habitat. Like they try and keep them in like.
Well, these are probably shitty menageries. He probably
Illyrio-
has them in cages.
He says the panther in Illyrio's menagerie. So Illyrio's got a badass menagerie, I guess, with freaking.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
have to be
pretty
a shitty zoo. It's
Okay.
just I think it's more natural like exhibits, quote unquote.
Okay.
But you missed the part where she noticed that she had a gold necklace on, but the other slave had a bronze or copper necklace.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. She does point that out. The slaves.
Which
are
I
wearing
think
copper or
maybe
something like that.
Danny's like
Well, first,
going bullshit alarm in her
Yeah.
mind about everything she's heard.
well, I was gonna say, and she felt like a slave when she realized they put gold on her.
On her, yeah, their collar on her because they had just said
She
that
realized what it
slaves had
meant.
gold
Yeah,
collars.
it was like, oh shit, I'm gonna be a slave here.
And also, so kind of on the thing Jeff was saying with the bullshit, she's wearing gold, but the other slaves are wearing bronze. Also, the slaves that were giving her the bath said he had 100,000 people in his Khalasar, like in his army. Khalasar is just the Dothraki word for army, which is why I keep saying that. They talk about it like that later.
It's a Game of Thrones thing.
That is a Game of Thrones word, I think. Maybe not.
Yes.
but I think when Viserys and Illyrio were talking about it, Viserys like, I only need 10 of the 40,000.
Yeah.
So the slaves say they got gold collars when they got bronze. They say there's 100,000. There's actually probably closer to 40. People kind of talking her up.
Exaggerating.
And you missed the part where the old lady touched her chooch.
Yeah, well, that was
Like,
for
why did they have to bring that up?
that was
It's
for
gotta
sure.
smell good.
Yeah, you don't want.
You imagine him going down on her on the wedding night and it just smells
But-
like fish.
But
and
why'd
it's
they
like,
have to put that in the book?
One dab on the lips down
Yeah,
there.
there's
Between your legs.
no
Like,
sensory in a Game of Thrones.
I just think it's more. We're gonna put a point to R.R. Martin being really creepy.
Oh
Yeah, so there's
George,
That's two.
George has some
That's
really
two
weird
in this
shit.
chapter. We're
just you are in for it, my
I
friend.
know he's
Just
a
wait.
perv.
Well, the first one was to show how fucked up Viserys
True, and the
is.
second one is because he doesn't want the readers to fear that she smells a little fishy on her wedding night. Even though I don't even think this is her wedding night. I think this is just
No,
the
this isn't a wedding night.
Not yet. I mean, it kind of cuts off.
I'm just gonna throw
We
it
don't
out there
know.
that I would have
Could be the same
never,
night.
never even thought about that until you read that part.
Yeah, obviously he wants it on your mind. I think
Yeah, because he's fucking weird.
to play devil's advocate, maybe he just like
Is into kids.
wants to emphasize that she's a kid and like makes it uncomfortable on purpose.
Oh,
Like
he
if she
definitely
was
is trying to
like
make
if she
it
was
uncomfortable on
20,
purpose.
if she was 20, would you have a problem with that? With this, with just that like that they put perfume on her neck and her nipples and her pussy.
I'm sure girls do this. Hey, girls, any girl listeners out there,
Let us know.
Let us
let
know
us
if
know
you
if
prefer.
this,
They
this
don't.
is the real thing.
They don't. I'm gonna give you a hint.
Well, you're married, so maybe the women you know don't. But there's a way more
You
efficient.
talk shit.
I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying she's already got you locked down. She doesn't have to anymore.
Yeah,
Obviously, Nelson
True.
hasn't been around many
I
women.
think that's right.
Before I go down on you, can I just know,
Nelson, I
do you
think that's-
perfume your
Nelson,
Your
I
pussy?
think that's
inexperience
right.
is showing, Nelson.
Oh my gosh. All right, moving on.
Dude, I spray Axe on my dick all the time.
You're
There
gonna
you
light
go.
that shit on fire one day. What are
There
you
you
in
go.
middle school? Spraying Axe on your dick?
It was a joke.
All right,
Um,
back on
so-
task.
There's another description. The quote I read was a description of Khal Drogo. The other description is about his braid. So we find out that the Dothraki don't cut their hair unless they like lose a fight, and he's Jeff said it earlier. I think they say he's almost 30. She thinks
Almost
she's
30,
a little bit
yeah.
less than 30.
Yep, around
And
30.
his braid is past his ass.
A lot of
So
hair.
he just like has never lost a fight, and she says that she's more afraid in that moment of Drogo than she's ever been of Viserys, who we can tell has kind of been a dick to her whole life. And she's like, "Please, let's go home."
What do you think home is, sister?
She
That's
wakes the
basically how it
dragon a
goes.
little bit. We get a little dragon here.
A little pussy dragon, a little salamander.
He's a dragon.
A little
Now.
salamander.
He's a dragon.
Yeah, so he freaks out. He's like, "What do you mean
Little
go home?
Komodo
Our
action.
home is across the sea. The only way to go home is you fuck this dude, like, so we can get his army and we can go take it back." Like,
It
And
shows
she's
you
like-
how little Viserys really cares about her too.
yeah,
Yeah, at
And-
this point, maybe he thought as they were growing up, like he would marry her too, and they keep the bloodline pure. But now that he's the beggar king, he's like, well, fuck. She's the only thing I have. I need to sell pretty much her maidenhead, kind of like we talked about in
yeah.
Glendon Ball and A Mystery Night. This is all I have. How am I going to get an army? Well, it's her. She's
Yeah.
got to do it.
Saw your
Yeah.
sister.
Got that
So I have
sweet,
this quote
sweet
because I knew,
scented puss.
because I know Kyle likes the underage sexual quote. So I got a quote. I got exactly what he says here.
I mean,
when-
I'm reading it.
We go home with an army, sweet sister, with Khal Drogo's army. That's how we go home. And if you must wed him and bed him for that, you will. He smiled at her. I'd let this whole Khalazar fuck you if need be, sweet sister. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took to get my army. Be grateful it's only Drogo. And then that's when Drogo walks up and he's like, she's like crying now after he says that. And it just ends with Danny smiles and stands up straight.
How about the quote, like, stand up straight and show that you have breasts? Because we all know, because you already have so little, or
It's
whatever the
3.
line is.
There,
Yeah,
God knows
he
you have
said
little
something like
enough
that.
as it is. That's 3
She's-
creepy things that he said about a 13-year-old. 1 chapter, 9 pages.
Oh boy, it's all uphill from here.
It's all uphill from
And
here.
that's
Alright.
how we end it, right?
So we spent enough time already talking about it. Wow, it was a long one for a 9-page chapter.
We
Uh,
bullshitted a lot.
We did. Kyle, overall thoughts before we let you go and do the spoiler part?
George R. R. Martin's a perv.
Besides the creep.
No. Any thoughts? I mean, obviously this Viserys dude is gonna do whatever it takes to get the job done. Even bang his own sister. I'm sure that's about to happen in the next.
There's not many predictions that we can make off what we just got,
Yeah.
but that's
Well-
I don't hate that one.
So I mean, like, we're still at the introduction of almost every character at this point,
Yeah.
so it's really hard for me to draw too many conclusions.
Yep.
I think it's curious that this was the first taste of something outside of the Stark family. I guess we got the prologue, but like real, you know,
Yeah.
people point of views
Yeah.
that we're gonna spend a lot of time with. This is the first one outside of the Stark family.
I feel like in this book and maybe the next book, the Starks are like definitely the main focus.
Well,
Right?
I'll have to go. I won't. I don't really remember, but we'll see as we
well,
go
like
through.
I said, everybody's like, "Oh, they build up Ned to be the main character of the first book,
Yeah.
and then they kill him." So I mean, obviously, everybody else agrees with you, or other people
Yeah.
agree with you.
Without spoilers, I think that's definitely true for this first book. But I don't think even in this first book that Ned's the most interesting character by far.
No, I
No,
don't.
and
I didn't even
I mean,
remember
even so,
really that Ned had chapters.
It's kind of like because like
He doesn't
next
have that
one's
many
Ned.
chapters.
Eddard, he's kind of like he's kind of like Superman, right? He's just white bread. He's like a good dude.
He is plain
It's
Jane.
kinda
Plain
plain,
Jane.
yeah.
Yeah.
The sneaky conniving people are better. But the problem is we don't really get many chapters from them because then we'd know what they were up to. So we kind of just see them through other people's eyes. We see
you
him through the
guys-
plain Jane's eyes like Ed. Yeah, so what about Illyrio? Anything about Illyrio?
Tub of shit.
Or Khal Drogo? Jorah Mormont? Main characters from this? Nothing to say? Yeah, there's not
I
much.
mean, Jorah didn't really do anything yet.
Yeah, we just saw him.
He was just there. And Drogo just kind of walked over. That was
Some
about
of these
it.
questions are just me prodding you to find out if you know anything about these people.
Well, I mean, I saw that one scene that you had on your Snapchat of Drogo chopping that dude's head off or something.
Oh yeah, Drogo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
But
I don't know if that's in. That's actually not in. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, where he rips the dude's tongue out of his throat,
I don't
he like
remember.
cuts him in the neck. And rips, that's not. In, that's
well, you're ruining
that's
it
not in the.
for him.
I
that's not in the
saw
books.
it. I
It's
saw
also
it.
not in the books.
Okay. I don't remember exactly what happened. I just remember they're in like a circle and the dude like lost his weapon or something, and then I forget.
Yeah, freaking awesome. All right, well that's will be it. We're gonna let Kyle go, and then there's not much spoilers to talk about for this one, but we'll discuss it in the anti-Kyle spoiler section of the podcast.
Yeah, get out of here, Kyle,
Fuck
so
you,
we can
Kyle.
talk cool stuff.
The whole podcast should be anti-Kyle.
No, you're in it now.
Fuck.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
And welcome back after our short break. Say bye-bye to Kyle. Now it's spoiler central. Be prepared for some spoilers.
Couple things we're gonna talk about. One, Jeff pointed out the slave thing from earlier. Kyle was laughing in my face, but
he
you
has
guys know
no
what I'm
idea.
talking
He has
about.
no idea. Especially, and we're not gonna know much until really Danny gets to what the fuck's the last Marine, and the slaves that she frees just can't wait to. Please let us go back to being a slave. Like they're so terrified
Exactly.
of being.
There's so many weird like. A lot of people hate Dance because it's like just every Danny chapter is Danny talking to people in like the council room at Marine.
Yeah,
Great
it's
Pyramid,
pretty bad.
and just, like,
It's
doing
pretty
nothing.
boring because you can see
But
how
some
much
of the
she
stuff-
grows from here being a scared little girl to being, you know,
An
when
actual
she starts
leader.
taking shit over. Yeah, and then
But
it's actually when she decides that she's gonna lead. It's really boring. It's boring stuff.
Well, but it's like the stuff that rulers have to deal with, and like weird stuff that like isn't in our actual timeline because like slavery doesn't exist right
Right.
now, and I assume these things probably were complications when like after the Civil War when the slaves in the South were free, right? The one that pops out to me is there was a guy who had bought slaves, then he trained them. He had like the best weaver in all of Marine train them.
Yeah,
On like the special way to make
I remember
like,
this story.
tapestries that nobody knew.
Yeah.
Then all the slaves get free, and now
They all compete
those-
with each other.
those three slaves go and make all these tapestries, and the slaver is like getting undercut. They're undercutting his prices, and the slaves that or the people that he does hire to make tapestries for him aren't making them as well as those people. So he comes up and says like, "Oh, I should have a part of that profit because I paid for their education."
Yeah.
Right? That that
And he ends
isn't really
up
what we're talking
he
about with
does get a
Kyle.
portion, doesn't he?
No, I think she ends up like making him buy them a new lube or something. Because that's one of the cases where it's obviously the slaves were slaves and they were being treated wrong. They should get everything they got.
Yeah, they didn't get paid at all during their whole life, except for
But
food.
there are other ones where, like, when the attack on Marine happened and the slaves were being freed, one of the slaves raped a dude's mom.
Yeah.
Who was the slave owner, and now he wants the slave to be punished. And the ruling that Dany had set down in stone before anybody started coming in front of her was anything that happened during the battle, during the sack, is forgiven. There's no
stupid rule.
But that's not really what I was thinking of as when we were talking about this, Kyle. I was thinking of Tyrion being a slave when he's in the grotesquerie.
That's what I was thinking. He's kind of got it better, and some of the other slaves actually have it better than him.
Exactly. He thinks, like, he's looking around at these slaves. He's like, a lot of these slaves have it way better than the peasants I saw when I was, like, walking around with Catelyn Tully, right? Like, he saw kind of, like, how they slum it. He knows what, like, the peasants live like in Westeros. And he's like, if you're a slave for a super rich dude,
you're
like,
definitely eating better. You definitely are more comfortable, wearing better clothes. The whole
And Tyrion's thinking, especially because the guy that he's a slave for, I think the guy's name is Yezin Yeznak, the big fat yellow guy who has, like, a thing for weirdos, like a bearded lady and
he has
Tyrion, a hermaphrodite to do with lady and male parts. Like, if those people were in Westeros, they're, like, maybe getting killed just for being weird.
Yeah,
right.
I could see
that. But here, they're treated like fucking lords. Basically, they get whatever they want, and they just have to do whatever this dude says every once in a while.
Yeah.
And there's even a part where Tyrion walks up. I think he's going to get. It's right before they escape him, and they're going to get water from the well. And there's a guy at the well talking about, like, oh, my master did this, or my master's about to come in here and win this whole fight for us, like, and just, like, talking up his master, almost like you would talk up, like, your quarterback or your football coach or something. And Tyrion thinks to himself, like, this guy is way more proud to be a slave for that guy than a lot of soldiers in Westeros are for being soldiers for their lords, stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's a huge part of the Tyrion story once he becomes a slave, is, like, and even before that when he's in Volantis and stuff, like, some of these slaves have it better than peasants in Westeros. So I just want to touch on that because, like Jeff said, it was hard to say what I wanted to say, like the example I was giving.
Yeah, and I was holding back too. That's why I wanted to make sure that we talked about it. But
all right, so the big spoiler theory thing in this chapter is
Red Door Lemon Tree, and you love
Red
that.
Door Lemon Tree.
You know,
I love this,
and
theory.
I know you love it, and I know your reasonings behind the lemons only growing in Dorne, and you've watched probably hours of videos about the Martells, trying to quietly plot their revenge. And I'm actually really pumped about it because...
Hold on.
That makes it way cooler.
A wise man I once said that nothing said before the word "but" matters.
But she doesn't really... This is the only thing I have, because really, lemon trees, they only grow there. How else can you really dispute that? If it's true, I don't know if we actually know that they don't grow anywhere else, or those are just the best lemons. But she never really says, like, through their traveling around, that they traveled a lot through sea. Which at some point, if she got from Dorne, which she knew, she remembers that house, to Bravos, Tyrosh, Pentos, anywhere like that, she would have had to have been on a long voyage at some point, and she just didn't say anything about the voyage. So,
well, it's like what you're saying. The narrow sea's pretty narrow. It could have been a quick boat trip, and she was young and didn't think it was that long.
Dorne's pretty south. I don't know.
I also tried to point this out when we were talking to Kyle. She's born
at Dragon's
when
Own.
King's Landing. I don't think so.
No,
she's born when King's Landing is sacked.
Oh, right.
William Derry, she, like, has very faint memories of William Derry. She remembers how he smells and, like,
sweet.
Again, it's hard. No, like, stinky because he's sick and dying.
But I'm saying she's at least like 3 years old there.
Okay, I'm saying a 3-year-old could easily not remember a boat trip. Or I bet you even when you're in the free cities, going from free city to free city, some of it is by sea.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely
like,
think there's some.
I would assume so too. You just
and
think
when you're
that
a kid, it would be so. You know how easy it would be to, like, me be at, like, your house.
She's
right?
She's definitely.
You and Glow live. How far do your parents live from each
15 minutes.
it would be so easy if you were a 3-year-old
To
for
think-
me to be at your house and put you in
Yeah.
the back of the car and be like, "We're going to California," and drive around in circles for 2
Right,
hours
and
and drop
it
you off
does.
at Glow's house.
Those trips, I remember vaguely like driving out to where Glow's family's from and being like, "Oh my god, that's such a far ride." Now I can like, you cruise
Do
through
it
that.
real
Bike
quick.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
that's nothing. I'll get there. But when you're a kid, it's so much longer. All right, I'll buy it. I think
And
it's
her
really
only
cool
s-
if it was actually in Dorne.
Here's the main thing that I think is against that theory. And for those of you who aren't aware, there's the big theory that because of the lemon tree thing, Dany wasn't raised in Davos with William Darry. She was actually taken to Dorne. A lot of it has to do with the pact that's in the future books where Quentin Martell is trying to take to Dany. That at some point the Dornishmen made a pact with the Targaryens that in the future Aerion Martell would marry Viserys. Quentin tries to flip the pact and say, okay, well, I'm the son, you're the daughter, because your brother's dead. We'll get married, like, to fulfill the pact. But that pact was made at some point.
Right.
And the signatures on it are... George loves making it tricky to tell. The Sea Lord of Braavos, Quentin Martell, and I think William Darry's signature is on it for the Targaryen. So these 3 people were together. Whether it was in Braavos, like we think, or it was in...
Maybe they went to. I mean, it all goes back to Lemon Tree, but maybe the Tyrells sent people to Bravos too.
Yeah. So a lot of people think she was raised in Dorne. I think she was the baby born in the Tower of Joy.
That's wild.
I think she was the one born in the Tower of Joy. I think Jon Snow is actually Ashara
Dane.
Ashara Dane and either Ned Stark or Brandon Stark's baby. Because the only thing we know about Ashara Dane, real quick Tower of Joy synopsis. Ned shows up at Tower of Joy. 7 versus 3 versus the Kingsguard. They win the fight. Ned and Howland Reed are the only 2 to survive. He goes up to the tower. Lyanna says, "Promise me something." As we read through this book, I'm going to point out a lot. Anytime Ned thinks of "promise me," he never once thinks of Jon afterwards. And also, the only time he thinks of Jon is when when Catelyn asks him about Ashara. She says, "What about Ashara?" And he says, "Never ask me about Jon." And when he has a lot of dreams in King's Landing of Lyanna saying, "Promise me," when he gets injured by Jaime Lannister, he goes into like a coma fever dream. Before that, he is gonna leave. He's like, "I'm leaving King's Landing. I'm taking my daughters back home." And right before he does, Littlefinger, because Littlefinger wants him to figure out the bastard thing, he's like, "Okay, we'll come to this brothel, then you can leave in the morning." He goes to the brothel. That's when he gets slittied, right?
Yeah.
By Jaime Lannister. He has a fever dream about Lyanna saying, "Promise me, promise me, promise me." When he wakes up, he is dead set on making sure Robert doesn't kill Dany. He doesn't give... If when he has that fever dream, all it says is, "Promise me."
So you think Dany is
and the
really
promise is
Lyanna
about
Stark's
Jon.
daughter?
Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar's daughter, yeah.
I
If
mean,
you
that's
think-
a really cool spin.
Yeah, because and then the theory about Ashara Dane that everybody thinks is true is Ashara Dane has a miscarriage and then jumps off a tower to kill herself, right?
Do you really think she jumped off the...
No, Ashara has Jon, you're saying, then kills herself.
I think it's Jon. There's a third baby, fake Aegon, who is another half Targaryen, right?
Dude, this
Who is
is
a
way
part of
too
this?
much shit. Can you imagine?
There's too many moving pieces, right? It's hard to tell.
It's so
but
many moving pieces.
There's 3 babies who are all born at the same time. Fake Aegon, Jon, Dany. We have 3 mothers. The person who we think is Dany's mother, Viserys' mom. The Lyanna Stark and Ashara Dane. A lot of people think Ashara Dane is Septa Lemore on that boat. And again, we'll get to this more as we go through. I'm just laying out the foundation for it. All we really get in this chapter is the lemon tree, so I'm just going to stick to that. That is just proof that Dany, maybe not proof, that is a very huge suggestion that Dany was in Dorne in her early life.
So, I didn't forget, but fake Aegon...
Dagon.
Aegon.
Or real Aegon. We don't even...
Rhaegon.
That's
Yeah,
just
it could be real.
Because
people
he's
just
got
think
the
he's
hair.
fake,
He's got the
but
hair.
he could be... Yeah, he's definitely a Targaryen, but people don't think that he is
When was he?
Rhaegar's
When
son.
was he born? Where was he at throughout the? Was he before?
So
was
here's
he
the thing,
born
is-
before Dany?
So,
Were they twins?
you know the
Did
baby
they
that
do
was
a loop?
smashed? You know the baby that was smashed?
Oh,
They
she's
said they
actually
switched it.
Elia Martell's son.
That's-
Fagon is.
Fagon.
His name is... Okay, so Elia Martell and Rhaegar's son is named Aegon.
right.
That's who he claims to be.
Right.
That's who John Con, because we get John Con viewpoints. That's who
Right.
John Con thinks he is.
Right.
There's a big theory that no, that baby actually got killed. And then who's this Targaryen baby? Well, there we have 3 Targaryen pregnant women, right? The Stark with Rhaegar. Ashara's not actually pregnant with a Targaryen. And then we have Dany's mom, who was the person who we think is Dany's mom, Rhaenyra, who we think is who is carrying Aerys' baby. So her baby is.
All right, so real quick, which birth happened first, Dany's or Jon's?
Right. We don't really know that timeline at all.
We do know that timeline. Again, it's from a video I've seen.
How
They're
do we know
like
that
9 months
timeline?
apart.
Where's the?
I don't remember it. I can look up the video and
I'm almost positive
there is
never been mention of when Jon was born.
There is. There's mention that one of them was born like right at the sack of King Landing, and the other one was born 9 months later because Ned shows up at the Tower of Joy 9 months later. So somebody is born. I think Jon is. One of them is born during the sack of King's Landing, and one of them is born 9 months later in the Tower of Joy. Those 2 events happened 9 months apart.
Okay, so it's really crazy to think. Where I don't even know where the Tower of Joy is. Is it near Dragonstone?
No, the Tower of Joy is in Dorne.
Okay.
Near the Martells.
When does Dany and Viserys meet up in this whole deal?
So I think, I'm not sure. I think Viserys.
Holy shit!
That's what I'm saying.
There's
so much shit to
again, I don't want to dive into it too deep right here because this chapter is not the one with evidence. I'm keeping a close eye. Just keep a close eye on all these things as we go through.
Deal.
Keep an eye on Ned's thoughts about the promise and Jon Snow. Those 2 things. Keep an eye about anything about where Dany thinks she's from.
Yeah.
And then just anything we hear about other stuff. You always have to like try to think, are the people we hear stuff from reliable, right? Like when we read this the first time, you assume everything Viserys says is true because it's what the author is telling us.
Yeah.
But it's not what the author is telling us; it's what Viserys telling Dany.
Right. And how
you have to think of it that way.
How about the other bomb is that Illyrio and Varys are like best friends, and
yeah,
you
which
find
is
that
also
out with
another
Arya, right?
Yeah.
That's part of this theory.
Tyrion. I think we find out during Tyrion.
No, it's Arya. She's climbing
She's
around the
dragon
skulls.
Yeah.
Right. But then when we get into detail when Tyrion's with Illyrio.
Yeah, Illyrio.
That's right. Yeah.
But right now, another part of this theory that we just talked about is, and we kind of touched on it. Again, I'm not trying to give anything away to Kyle, but just like bring up stuff that I didn't think about the first time through, right? Like, what the fuck's Illyrio doing? He can make a ton of money right here.
Right.
A lot of people think Illyrio is a Blackfire, who we know a lot about.
No
we've just
way.
Read. Illyrio's a Blackfire, and he's the actual dad of Fagon. And Aegon Targaryen isn't actually Aegon Rhaegar's son.
He's Daemon Blackfire the Third.
He's like the son of the son of the son of Daemon Blackfire, exactly. And Illyrio is like one of the last Blackfires left. That's why he's so rich.
Why is he so fat?
That's why he can get the Golden Company on his side immediately. The Golden Companies don't fight for the Targaryens. They literally fight against the Targaryens. Less than 100 years ago, they were founded. Or about 100 years ago, the Golden Company was founded to fight against the Targaryens. And now they're all on board with Aegon.
But how many Targaryens how many Blackfires are left in this Golden Company?
We have no idea.
We don't,
That's the thing. We don't know. So, and again, we'll get to...
But now...
I haven't read these books with all this stuff in mind.
Okay.
Right? A lot of these theories I've come up across a lot since my last read-through. But I did know some of it when you just finished the book, Chef, and I was kind of reading along with Dance With You. Mm-hmm. And some of this stuff, it's not like, oh my god, yes, it's 100% he's not Aegon.
Yeah.
But it's like, you read it and you're like, he definitely, there's some weird stuff going on.
I gotcha.
And again, we don't have anything in this except for the lemon tree, so I don't want to waste too much time, but that is, those are some main theories.
And it's definitely your favorite theory to talk about.
I do like it. I don't know if that's true. There's a lot of other theories that I like that seem... I just sent you guys the video. One of my favorite theories is Tyrion was a target at the Purple Wedding, not Joffrey. Stuff like that seems like it doesn't really matter. It already happened. Who cares who the target was? Joffrey's dead. Tyrion's not. But there's just like the evidence that's there is so overwhelming, and it's crazy to think that everybody thinks one way.
Yeah.
It's really, it's like history, you know? It happened a different way, but it's written in another way.
And the same thing with the Jon and Rhaegar thing, right? Like, after book 3, there's so many hints about the Jon and Rhaegar thing that George R. R. Martin keeps pretending like it's like, oh, if you figured this out, you're you're so smart, because he doesn't ever openly say it. So if you actually think Jon is Rhaegar's son, you're a genius. But No, if you read between the lines, it makes more sense that Jon is Shardane and Ned Stark's son.
I mean, just imagine the curveball George would drop on the world.
I know, because there are people like me who look up every single theory thing, but like 80% of the Game of Thrones readers, probably more, are like Glow or like you. Without me, you would just read the books and be like, oh, those are cool. I think Jon's Rhaegar's son. I think all this stuff.
I mean, I never would have came up with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
The
either.
Ashara thing.
Without
Yeah,
the show,
exactly.
I'm not reading close enough to pick up anything like that.
A lot of people are like, I'll bring up a lot of theories that get into like some like genetic stuff and other stuff like that. I'm going to bring all these up as we go through. And people always, the main argument is George R. R. Martin wouldn't have thought of that. He wouldn't have thought that this was a recessive gene passed down through women only or whatever.
I don't know about that.
But if you look at George
Yes, he would.
if you look at George Martin's other books, he writes all sci-fi, and a lot of it has like gene manipulation and telekinesis and like telepathic people and all kinds of stuff.
If there's one thing George is,
and
a
also
smart fucking dude. He knows what he's doing.
He researches his shit and fucking makes sure it's pedantic people don't fucking
it takes
pull
fucking
it apart.
like 12 years to write Dance with Dragons, or 8. I think it's been 8 years. I think like a week ago was the 8-year anniversary from when Dance with Dragons comes out. You know why it takes fucking 8 years to write a book? When you have so much moving pieces like this, with just the theory I just talked about. When if you're trying to make all that work, or at least make it seem like any of that could be possible, just make it ambiguous. You have to just spend so much time fact checking yourself.
Oh my god,
rereading.
He's got to have somebody in his camp that he trusts.
Fact check him.
Right, and just be like, "Hey, remember, dude, you said this." Or
he does in his interviews. He says all the time. He has the people who made the Wikipedia. They literally read all the books and made a Wikipedia, and they started calling him out on stuff. Like after book 3, they're like, "Hey, Bran's horse, Dancer switches genders between books 1 and 3."
Huh.
And Renly's eyes change colors.
Does he go back and fix that shit then?
No,
like on new copies.
He said he couldn't the horse one, but he said the other main one, that the big one that he missed, was Renly's eyes change colors from blue to green. He's like, somebody describes him as blue, somebody describes him as green. So then in book 3, somebody reflects on Renly, and they're like, oh, he had blue-green eyes. So he never goes back and like fixes stuff, but he'll like add stuff later to make it like kind of work. The horse thing, he said he couldn't write himself out of, but
I mean that's
and he didn't have them until the end of book 3. Now he has these people who run his Wikipedia who he says know Westeros better than he does. That they proofread him, or he'll email them while he's writing, and be like, "Hey, what color? What is this?
Yeah.
How old is this person? When
that's
did this
awesome.
event take place?" And he said his publishers both. He has 2 publishers who both know it really well.
They must have a lawsuit out, or like a contract,
an NDA, non-disclosure agreement.
Oh,
yeah.
dude, they have to.
Oh my god, could you imagine if any of that gets leaked?
Yeah.
I mean,
but the thing is, those people, they do
you
it
would be
because
pissed when those chapters came out for the next book. Nelson was
read 2.
Nelson was literally
well, they weren't leaked. George put them out. George put them out.
Right, but I'm saying if you saw like a Reddit post tomorrow with like the next 15 chapters, check them out here. You're reading.
Okay,
you're not going to work tomorrow and reading them.
You're 100% right, but here's the thing: if I was the guy, I think the guy's name is Elia, the guy who made the Wikipedia, him and his wife. If I was Elia and George trusted me enough that I was the one getting asked questions, and I knew his world as well as he did, and I was the one getting asked questions, and I was the one he was running ideas by, I wouldn't there's no fucking shot in my life I would do. Like, you could pay me $1 million and I wouldn't tell you anything about it. You know?
Well, yeah,
like,
I mean, he's probably getting a really nice penny. You know what?
He really got like the biggest fan ever to be the one to fact check him. And, like, there's nothing more like that can keep somebody loyal to you than just like being just a huge fan of yours. You know?
I think we're kind of bullshitting, and I don't mind it because it's all pretty Game of Thrones relative. And there's not much to talk about spoiler-wise right now. At work, I took the book because I planned on rereading this chapter before we did this, whatnot. So, one of my boss was like, "How much money do you think that guy's worth?" Talking about George. Would you have a guess of what his net worth would be?
Did you look it up?
I did look it up, and I can give you some numbers too. I think off the top
45.
of my head. 45 million.
Can you give me? If you might not know this, how many copies did Dance with Dragons sell the first year?
I don't know. I didn't.
Well, he's getting money from HBO too.
Yeah, so
that's
he's
why
got
I'm
HBO
saying
money and
let me
book
try.
money,
Let me find the thing that I was looking at.
I bet you he makes more money from not endorsements like of commercials, but memorabilia, like calendars. Anytime anything says Game of Thrones on it, he gets.
No, definitely.
He's making a quarter.
So this
you
is
know?
what the Google has. $80 million.
That's his net worth.
Yep.
I'm
And
surprised.
it broke
I think it would
down
be higher than that.
his yearly salary. He's making $25 million a year, and 10 of that was from the show.
And I bet you only like 3 is from books. I bet you the rest is shit he sells.
So right here, annual HBO and book earnings, 15. His his per season HBO paycheck is $15 million.
Per season.
Well,
Per season.
that's over
So,
now.
or by the time the series ends, he will have earned $120 million. Dude, he's 5'6". That's crazy. Little short guy.
What? I know he's that short.
That's all I'll say.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean that's crazy. Was there any other spoiler stuff we want to talk about for this one?
There's just some things I want to keep an eye out for.
Go ahead. What's up?
So, eye color and Targaryens. So,
Yeah,
Daenerys has violet eyes, Viserys has lilac. I want to
Okay.
know if their eye color
Come on,
deals
we're
with
talking.
like their
We're
personality.
talking purple. Oh,
So here's
No,
the deal.
but there's
I
literally
got something
like
in that too.
The
talking
thing about
shades of purple.
Purple eyes that I'm going to point out is not all people with purple eyes are Targaryens. The Danes have purple eyes. Some Baratheons have purple eyes because they have descendants from Valyrian blood. And I think this family's gone, but they were the Valrons or the Veleron or something like that. I think they're dead, but they had purple eyes too, and they intermarried a lot with like House Derry, I think, and I think the Hightower.
I mean, even think about the Blackfires when they went across. A lot of them, some of
Yeah.
them had purple eyes. They started mating with other people.
And just think about, like we just talked about the Mystery Knight in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Fucking Aegon the Fourth, the one who just fucked everybody.
yeah,
How many bastards did
Right.
he have?
right.
That's true. Yeah.
And some of the Trueborn Targaryens had brown hair.
Brown eyes.
Brown
Exactly.
eyes.
Daemon, Egg's older brother, the drunk one, Daeron. Brown hair and brown eyes.
With like a silver streak, right? Yeah. So,
yeah.
One thing I want to point out too, I get a real Joffrey vibe from Viserys this chapter too.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Well, do you think he's similar to Cersei, that she hates Tyrion, or he hates Daenerys for killing his mom, basically?
yeah, it said that. It said that he never forgave her. That was in this chapter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here and again, here's the thing that makes all this have a lot more sense. Dany isn't actually his sister. Dany is like a cousin.
But then she never killed his mom, which makes it. He was 8 years old.
So-
He was 8 years old, though. That's another thing about this whole conspiracy about her being someone else. Viserys was there. He was 8 years old. That's a big difference than being 3 and forgetting some shit.
So I think, check what I just said. I think Viserys probably thinks Dany's his son because I know the main thing in this theory is why would Ned not take Dany if that's the one that's actually his niece, right? If it makes
Well, the
sense
hair.
if John, exactly, right? Ned, let his niece go across the sea with Ashara Dane. That's why Ashara Dane fakes her own death. To take Dany, or whether it's fake Aegon, to take that baby, Lyanna's baby, across the sea, while he takes Jon, because that's the one that makes sense that he could have a bastard with, is Jon Snow. You know?
Sure. It's just, like, we already said that there's babies months apart.
But I'm saying that would
Viserys
make
is
her
gonna-
not Viserys' sister.
Right, and I'm saying Viserys remembers her. Viserys thinks that she's his sister right now.
We don't know that.
Come on.
What do you mean?
Why would he be...
I think Viserys thinks it's his sister.
Say Viserys knows his mom died in childbirth and had a miscarriage. Baby dies, she dies. He gets captured by Derry, goes down to the Martells, goes down to the Danes, goes down to Dorne or whatever. At that point, Dany's getting born, right? And they need to get rid of him. Now they have Viserys, a lone Targaryen in the world, and his, I guess it would be his nephew, right? Because Viserys and Rhaegar are brothers. So his nephew, or his niece, Dany, and they're just like, hey, take her across the sea, pretend she's your sister.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That would explain why he doesn't care as much about like selling her off and stuff.
I
I mean, I guess you would still
don't
care
think
about
so.
niece, but sister's like different.
I don't think so. But all right, I don't have much else for this.
Yeah, that's all I got. The only other thing was Jorah Mormont. What you pointed out, huge. That's a huge thing. A lot of people think there's something fishy going on with Jorah Mormont. Either he actually wasn't exiled, or he set himself up, or he was set up by somebody. Because you're right, Bear Island is on the western coast of Westeros. To get there, as a Tyroshi slaver, to get there, you have to go the whole way around Dorne, because you can't go north. You have to go the whole way around Dorne. So why the hell are they over there?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah. So that's another huge thing. Again, I'm sure there's a theory behind it. I'm not sure what it is, but something to keep an eye on going forward. All right, well, that's all we had for our spoiler stuff. Glow, you don't got anything else, right?
Oh no, I got nothing on my plate here, but
stick along with us. I know it's starting kind of slow. This is all basic shit we've seen 20 times in the show. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you've seen the show more than once.
I could
probably the first
honestly
season 20 times.
Picture this scene by scene in my head. I think, honestly, with no errors at all.
It's tough too, because like when Dany meets Drogo, I want to think of it in a huge tower with 9 huge black ivory towers with ivy coming down it, and the inside, like they're inside a building where there's just a really thick scent of smoke and like meat smoking and stuff like that. But I don't. I picture her on the steps of Illyrio's manse, Khal Drogo riding up, looking at her, and then turning and riding away.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. Every time
I've seen that 20 times.
Every time I read this, I immediately think of how'd it look in the show, and that's what I get. And it's just because it's so easy to picture it there.
I mean, I get it more with the characters I kind of picture are in the show, but everything else I kind of imagine myself. I'm
working on it too. I try and imagine I'm there, but trust me, if you guys are doing a reread and you're following along and these podcasts are a little longer than they should be, we'll work on it. And B, like if you are just thinking like, this book, I've already read it, I'm not getting anything new out of it. Trust me, I've reread this thing like 4 times and I'm rereading it again. These were meant for rereads. You'll get something out of it. But with that, we'll let you guys go. Join us next time in Eddard 1, First Ned chapter.
See you, everybody.
Night is dark and full of terrors.